There's a quiet truth you can only hear when you stop rushing long enough to really feel it. Life doesn't respond to the sheer volume of what you do. It responds to the frequency you're carrying as you do it. You could meditate for hours. Write down goals until the ink runs dry. Or tick off every box on your to-do list. But if the emotional ground beneath it all is still doubt, fear, or scarcity, the quantum field will faithfully mirror those vibrations back to you. In this reality, urgency is never the deciding factor. Alignment is. And alignment isn't something you achieve by pushing harder or thinking longer. It's what naturally happens when you let your inner state match the reality you want to live. Imagine a radio you can twist the knob frantically, hoping to find a song you love. But unless you land exactly on the station's frequency, all you'll get is static. Life works the same way. The static in our experience isn't from lack of effort. It's from broadcasting on a different frequency than the one that holds what we're asking for. This is why so many people find themselves exhausted chasing results, chasing breakthroughs, chasing peace, yet ending up right where they started. They think it's because they didn't try hard enough. But in truth, the field doesn't respond to effort alone. It responds to coherence. When your thoughts, emotions, and energy are moving in the same direction, you create a kind of resonance. And in that resonance, the things you've been hoping for no longer feel far away. They start to feel inevitable. But here's the part that takes courage. Coherence isn't built through control. It's not about micromanaging your mind or policing every thought. It's about softening. It's about letting go of the belief that the outcome depends entirely on your force. When you relax the grip, you release resistance. And in that release, the energy you've been holding hostage finally flows toward what you've been asking for. Like a river that stops straining against rocks and begins to move with its natural current, your life starts to carry you without the constant grind. And yet, letting go doesn't mean you do nothing. It means you act from a different place, a place where action feels like expression rather than survival. When you send an email, you're not doing it to prove your worth. You're simply adding your voice to a conversation you already belong to. When you take a step forward, it's not because you're afraid of falling behind, but because the step itself feels like part of the life you've chosen. This shift changes everything. You stop asking, "When will it come?" and start asking, "How can I enjoy being the person who already lives here?" That question carries a completely different vibration. And the quantum field, which is never judging, only reflecting, responds to that vibration instantly. You'll notice small things at first, the right words appearing at the right time, a conversation that seems to open a door, a sense of ease where there used to be tension. These are not coincidences, they're confirmations. Sometimes people worry that if they stop pushing, nothing will happen. But that's because they've mistaken force for power. True power isn't frantic, it's steady. It comes from the deep, knowing that what you seek is already woven into the fabric of your life. You're simply walking toward the moment you see it with your own eyes. And when you hold that knowing, you stop working against yourself. Your inner state and your outer actions start to sing the same song. In the end, this isn't about becoming a master of manifestation techniques or stacking more habits on top of your already crowded days. It's about the simplest, most radical act, aligning your being with what you want and letting life meet you there. The quantum field isn't keeping score of how much you've done. It's responding to who you are while you're doing it. So if you take nothing else from this, let it be this: stop measuring the distance to your dream and start living as if it's already here. Not someday, not when you deserve it. Now, because the moment your inner state and your chosen reality meet in harmony, there's no delay. The field responds, not with a struggle, but with a quiet, undeniable. Yes. 1. Stop performing so your energy can speak for itself. There comes a time in life when you realize that constantly performing, constantly adjusting yourself so you will be accepted, validated, or praised is an exhausting way to exist. It's like living your days on a stage where the lights are too bright, and the applause never lasts long enough to fill the silence that follows. For years, many of us have been conditioned to believe that our value depends on what others see, on how convincingly we can wear a mask of competence, charm, or strength. And yet, deep down, there's a quiet ache that knows this is not the truth of who we are. When you stop performing, you give your energy permission to speak on your behalf. You begin to understand that the truest form of influence does not come from crafted speeches or carefully rehearsed gestures, but from the silent, steady frequency you carry in your being. This frequency is not born from trying harder. It is born from being more of who you already are. Imagine a still lake in the early morning. No ripples, no disturbance, just the mirror-like reflection of the sky. That is what your energy becomes when you are no longer thrashing about trying to control the perception of others. In this stillness, your presence becomes magnetic without you having to force it. People can feel the integrity of it, the unshakable quiet that comes from someone who knows their worth without needing a single word to prove it. The world has taught us to strive, to push, to make an impression, but the deeper truth is that authentic energy leaves a deeper mark than any performance ever could. You can meet someone who barely speaks, and yet their presence changes the air in the room. Why? Because they are congruent inside and out. They are not fragmented by the need to be someone else in order to be loved. Their energy speaks louder than their voice. Letting your energy speak for itself means you stop negotiating your identity based on who's in the room. You are no longer one person at work, another with friends, and yet another when you are alone. You become whole, and wholeness has a resonance. It's like a note played perfectly in tune. It doesn't need to shout to be heard. It simply rings clear. This shift does not happen overnight. At first, you might feel uneasy when you no longer fill silences with explanations. When you resist the urge to constantly smile to make others comfortable. When you don't jump in to prove your competence or your kindness. But slowly, something beautiful happens. You realize the world does not fall apart when you are simply yourself. In fact, the opposite occurs. You begin to draw to you the people, opportunities, and experiences that are in harmony with your true frequency. This is not about becoming passive or indifferent to others. It's about allowing the truth of your being to stand unguarded. You can still speak, still act, still engage fully, but those actions now flow from a place of self-knowing, not from the reflex of self-defense. The exhausting effort of shaping your every move to meet imagined expectations falls away, and in its place is a calm vitality. If you've ever been in the presence of someone who is deeply at peace with themselves, you'll know what I mean. There's a warmth that doesn't need to be announced, a kindness that doesn't need to be performed. It's the way a sunbeam falls across your face. It doesn't seek your approval to shine. It simply exists in its nature, and you feel it. When you live this way, your life becomes simpler. You're no longer chasing after every passing opinion, trying to collect approval as if it were oxygen. Your value is no longer on loan from the judgments of others. It is anchored within you. And as your energy grows steadier, you'll notice something remarkable. People trust you more, even if you say less. They sense the absence of an agenda, the absence of manipulation. They feel safe in your presence, because you are safe within yourself. The quantum field, the invisible network of energy and possibility we are all connected to, responds more directly to this kind of inner alignment than to any frantic effort to make things happen. When your inner world is congruent, when you are not leaking energy by pretending, you broadcast a clear signal. And in the same way a radio station tunes in more clearly without interference, the field mirrors back to you the clarity you've cultivated. You may find that relationships begin to change. Some will deepen, because those who are aligned with your truth will feel even closer to you. Others may fall away, because your refusal to perform will unsettle those who relied on you to play a role for their comfort. This is a natural sorting, a shedding of what no longer resonates, and though it may feel like loss, it is really the space-making that allows a fuller, blankened, truer life to take root. In the end, letting your energy speak for itself is an act of trust. Trust that who you are is already enough. Trust that you don't need to decorate your essence to make it valuable. Trust that the same intelligence that spins the galaxies and makes the tides dance is moving through you, quietly but powerfully, without needing you to prove anything. When you live from this place, you are no longer trying to be the loudest voice in the room. You are simply becoming the clearest one. And in the silence between words, in the ease between actions, your true energy will say everything that needs to be said. 2. Listen to your body like a fine-tuned antenna. Your body is not just a vessel that carries you from one place to another. It is your most honest and prockets, unfiltered messenger. Long before your mind can name what's wrong, your body knows. It whispers, it nudges, and if you ignore it for too long, it shouts. But most of us have been trained to override those signals, to push through fatigue, to ignore discomfort, to be strong, even when our bodies are pleading for a pause. When you begin to see your body as a finely tuned antenna, you realize it is constantly scanning the field around you and transmitting information about your alignment or your lack of it. This antenna is not made of metal or wires, but of breath, heartbeat, muscle tone, and subtle sensations. Every reaction, whether it's a knot in your stomach, a sudden heaviness in your chest, or a burst of warmth when something feels right, is a transmission. It is your body speaking the language of truth. Think about a moment when you walked into a room and immediately felt tension, even though no one had said a word. Or a time when you met someone new and instantly felt at ease in their presence. That wasn't just intuition, it was your body, acting as an instrument, reading the energy in the space and relaying it to you in sensations before your mind could catch up. The trouble is, we've learned to dismiss these signals. We tell ourselves we're overreacting. We numb the messages with caffeine, sugar, or endless distractions. We force the body to keep moving when it's begging us to stop, and in doing so, we lose our most reliable compass for navigating life in harmony. But when you choose to listen, truly listen, you begin to notice the smallest cues. The way your breath shortens when you're in a conversation that doesn't feel right. The way your jaw relaxes when you speak your truth. The way your shoulders drop when you step into a space where you feel safe. These are not random reactions. They are the body's way of showing you whether you are in resonance with your environment, your choices, and your own deeper self. Listening is not about becoming hyper-aware of every twitch or tingle. It's about building a quiet relationship of trust with your own physical being. It's pausing long enough to say, "What are you telling me right now?" And then, instead of pushing the answer away, you respond with care. Sometimes that care looks like taking a slow, deep breath before you send that reply you're not sure about. Sometimes it's stepping outside for a few minutes when you feel your chest tightening during a meeting. Sometimes it's choosing rest instead of productivity, when your body's signals tell you that rest is the most productive choice you could make. When you honor these signals, something remarkable happens. Your body starts to trust you back. The static begins to clear, and the messages become clearer and gentler. Instead of overwhelming you with pain or fatigue to get your attention, it begins to speak to you in the softest language, like a subtle change in posture, a gentle pull towards something nourishing, a feeling of lightness when you're on the right path. This is not indulgence, it's alignment. Because the quantum field, the great network of possibility, doesn't just respond to your thoughts, it responds to your whole state of being. If your mind says yes but your body is screaming no, the signal you send out is mixed, and the field mirrors that confusion back to you. But when your body, mind, and energy are in agreement, the signal becomes coherent, strong, and unmistakable. There is a quiet power in treating your body as your ally, instead of your servant. You begin to see that your physical form is not separate from your spiritual journey. It is the ground wire that keeps your energy stable, the receiver that picks up on truths too subtle for the mind to grasp. I have walked through seasons where I ignored every signal, pushing myself until my body had no choice but to stop me through illness, through exhaustion, through burnout. And I have also walked through seasons where I listened, where I rested when needed, where I adjusted my pace to match my inner rhythm. The difference is, profound life feels less like a fight and more like a flow. So, pause right now, even for a moment. Feel your breath. Notice where there's ease. And where there's tension, ask yourself, what is my body trying to tell me then? Instead of rushing past the answer, honor it. Because the truth is, your body has been trying to guide you home all along. 3. Your body is a frequency vault that stores vibrational codes. Your body is not just flesh and bone. It is an intricate archive, a living library, storing every frequency you have ever held, every repeated emotion, whether it is joy, grief, resentment, or peace, leaves a mark on your biology. Over time, these marks form a pattern, like a unique code. And this code is what the quantum field reads when it responds to you. We often think that the universe listens to what we say, but in truth, it responds more faithfully to what we are. Words are fleeting. States of being are persistent. You can speak affirmations all day, but if the code stored in your body vibrates with doubt, fear, or lack, the field mirrors that, not your words. This is why some people repeat the same mantras for years, yet feel nothing changes. They have tried to change the sentence, but not the state. Think about how a familiar song carries you back in time. You don't just remember the lyrics. You feel the emotion you had when you first heard it. Your body does the same with your lived experiences. It remembers the posture you held during years of worry, the breath patterns of constant stress, the subtle clench in your jaw from unspoken truths. And just as a musical note can resonate long after it's played, your body holds the resonance of emotions long after the events that sparked them. This is why change can feel hard. You are not only shifting your thoughts, you are retuning an entire instrument that has been playing the same melody for years. But this is also why change is possible, because the body is not a static archive. It is a living one. Every moment is a chance to record something new. If you want a new reality, you must first change the code you broadcast into the field. That means shifting the way you feel, not in a forced, artificial way, but through consistent, gentle recalibration. It begins in the smallest of choices: the breath you take before reacting in anger, the pause you allow before slipping into old fear, the willingness to notice beauty in a place you once ignored. Each time you choose differently, you write a new frequency into your cells. You are teaching your body a new way to be. And as that new code stabilizes, the quantum field can't help but respond differently, because the you it's reading has changed. This is not about denying your feelings or pretending everything is fine when it's not. Suppression doesn't change the code. It only buries it deeper. The work here is to feel fully, but to process and release rather than store and repeat. It's about learning to notice when an emotion is asking to move through you, instead of taking up residence inside you. I've known seasons where my body's code was heavy with fear. Even in moments of quiet, my muscles were braced, as if waiting for a blow. Opportunities would come, and I'd find myself hesitating, not because I didn't want them, but because my body was still carrying the imprint of times I had been hurt. And then, slowly, I began to retune. Daily walks under the open sky, speaking truth in conversations where I once stayed silent, pausing to feel the ground under my feet before making decisions. Over time, the fear loosened its hold. My code changed, and life responded in kind. It's worth remembering that the quantum field is neutral. It does not judge your frequency as good or bad. It simply reflects it back. If your stored code is one of scarcity, it will keep handing you experiences that match scarcity. If your stored code is one of worthiness and openness, it will mirror that too. The work is not to convince the field, it is to reprogram the archive you carry within, so that what it reads is aligned with the life you want. So, how do you begin? Start by noticing your most common emotional states. Not the ones you wish you had, but the ones you actually live in most days. Are they tense or relaxed? Hopeful or guarded? These states are the frequencies you are broadcasting, whether you mean to or not. From there, gently introduce small, repeatable practices that shift those states toward the ones that feel closer to your desired reality. This isn't instant. Just as it took time for your current code to form, it will take time for the new one to stabilize. But the moment you begin, you are already different. And every time you choose the new frequency over the old, you are telling your body, this is who we are now. And the beauty is, once the code changes, you don't have to make the quantum field respond. It already is. The shift is inevitable, because the field is always listening, and now it's hearing something new. For action is never as powerful as the magnetism of wholeness. There is a quiet strength that moves through a person who acts from a place of inner completeness. It's not loud. It's not frantic. It does not need to convince anyone. When you feel whole, when you know, deep in your bones, that you already have enough, that you already are enough, your actions carry a weight and magnetism that no amount of forced effort can match. So many of us have been taught to believe that doing more will lead to having more, and that having more will finally allow us to feel complete. But life doesn't work that way. You can take action from a place of fear, urgency, and lack, and find yourself exhausted, moving in circles, wondering why your results never match the amount of energy you've poured in. The truth is, the energy that drives the action matters more than the action itself. Think of it like planting a seed. If you plant it in dry, depleted soil and constantly dig it up to see if it's growing, your anxiety will stunt its life. But if you plant it in rich, nourished earth and trust the process, the seed has no choice but to grow. Your inner state is that soil. The quality of your actions is determined by the frequency of the state from which they arise. When you act from wholeness, there is no rush. There is no desperation. You are not trying to force the universe's hand. You are simply meeting it halfway. People can feel the difference, even if they can't name it. They are drawn to you, not because of what you're doing, but because of the way you are while doing it. There's a steadiness in your tone, a calm in your presence, a quiet certainty that tells the world, I am not here to chase, I am here to align. I've learned this the hard way. There were years when my days were full of action meetings, calls, emails, endless lists, but underneath, the hum of anxiety never stopped. I was working from the belief that if I didn't keep moving, I would fall behind. But no matter how much I did, the results always felt like sand slipping through my fingers. Then, slowly, I began to shift. I started asking myself before every decision, am I acting from fullness or from lack? If the answer was lack, I paused. I took a breath. Sometimes I waited an hour, sometimes a day, until my inner ground felt steady again. And something remarkable happened. The fewer, more aligned actions I took brought more results than the dozens of anxious ones ever did. Opportunities began to arrive without me chasing them. Conversations flowed more easily. I stopped knocking on every door and instead found that the right doors seemed to open on their own. This is the paradox that life teaches you. If you're willing to listen when you no longer act to prove your worth becomes visible without effort. When you no longer chase what you think you lack, you begin to attract what matches your sense of abundance. Wholeness is magnetic because it's rare. The world is full of noise, people pushing, competing, reaching, and in the middle of that storm, the person who stands still in their completeness becomes a lighthouse. Others can feel that calm as clearly as a warm hand on a cold day. They may not understand it, but they will remember it, and they will want to be near it. Acting from wholeness also changes the way you see outcomes. When you are not acting to fill a gap, you are free from the weight of constant disappointment. If something works, it's a welcome addition. If it doesn't, it's simply a redirection. Either way, you remain steady because your sense of self was never tied to the result. That steadiness is what allows you to sustain success once it arrives. To live this way, you don't need to eliminate all desire. Desire is natural, but you do need to meet desire from a place of sufficiency, not starvation. Wanting something is not the same as needing it to feel whole. When you want from fullness, the wanting is light, playful, expansive. It invites possibilities instead of gripping them. So the next time you feel the urge to act, ask yourself, is this movement coming from fear or from fullness? If it's fear, give yourself the space to return to wholeness first. Breathe. Remind yourself of what is already here, already working, already enough. When you move from that state, your action will have a clarity, a resonance, and a magnetic pull that no amount of frantic effort can ever create. And here's the quiet truth. The universe responds not to the volume of your action, but to the frequency of your being. When your being says, "I am enough," life brings you things that match that truth. When it says, "I am lacking," life will echo that as well. You are the magnet. You are the soil. You are the one who decides the frequency from which all action begins. 5. The power of open space in the mind. There is a quiet courage in leaving space unfilled. In a world that worships productivity, constant planning, and the endless pursuit of the next step, allowing an open field to exist in your mind can feel almost rebellious. We are conditioned to believe that if we are not actively thinking, solving, or analyzing, we are falling behind. But the truth is, a mind without space is like a garden with no room left for anything new to grow. It becomes crowded, tangled, and exhausted. I learned this lesson not from a book, but from a period in my life when I had no choice but to stop. My body was tired, my spirit was tired, and my mind, always spinning, was beginning to feel like a small, locked room. Every inch of it was covered with notes, lists, and blueprints for what I thought life should be. I didn't realize how much I had been smothering possibility under the weight of my own certainty. It was only when I allowed myself to take my hands off the wheel, to stop filling every moment with thinking, that something unexpected began to happen. Space appeared. Not the empty kind that feels hollow, but the fertile kind that feels alive, as if something unseen was moving in the background, preparing to show itself. This is the nature of the quantum field. It thrives in openness. It cannot deliver something new to a mind that is already convinced it knows exactly what must happen and how. An open mind is not a passive mind. It's not about drifting aimlessly or avoiding responsibility. It's about making a deliberate choice to pause the constant doing of the mind so that a deeper intelligence, one far beyond your conscious reasoning, has a chance to speak. You can think of it like tuning a radio. If you keep spinning the dial, you'll only hear static. But if you stop, wait, and listen, the signal will eventually come through, clear and steady. Creating space in the mind often feels uncomfortable at first. The silence can be confronting because it strips away the noise we use to distract ourselves from uncertainty. You might find that the moment you stop thinking about your problems, the mind rushes in with even more thoughts, as if afraid to lose control. This is normal. It's the mind's way of protecting its old patterns. But if you can breathe through that restlessness and stay with the openness, you'll notice something shift. In that space, inspiration has room to land. Possibilities you never considered begin to emerge. A new perspective might arise not because you forced it, but because you made room for it. The most unexpected solutions in my life have never come while I was staring at the problem. They arrived while I was taking a walk, watching the light change in the late afternoon, or sitting quietly with a cup of tea. That is the gift of open space. It allows life to meet you halfway. The quantum field doesn't need your detailed plans to work on your behalf. In fact, it works best when you step back and give it room to weave connections you cannot see yet. But for that to happen, your mind must be spacious enough to receive something unfamiliar. If every corner of your mental landscape is already occupied by fixed ideas, there is nowhere for the new to take root. Think of the seasons. Winter is not a mistake. It is nature's way of clearing, resting, and leaving the soil open so that spring can bring what is meant to grow. Your mind needs its own winters, moments where you do not rush to fill the silence, moments where you trust that the pause is not the end, but the preparation. Practically, this might mean setting aside a few minutes each day to do nothing, not scroll, not read, not plan, just sit and breathe, noticing the space within you. Or it might mean loosening your grip on how you think things should unfold, allowing the unexpected to have a place at the table. It's not always easy, but the more you practice, the more you'll see that openness is not emptiness, it is invitation. And here's the quiet beauty. When your mind becomes spacious, your energy shifts. You stop radiating the tight, anxious frequency of someone who must control every outcome, and instead begin to carry the calm, magnetic presence of someone who trusts the unfolding. People can sense this in you. Opportunities can sense this in you. Even the right timing has a way of sensing this in you. In a world that tries to fill every moment with noise, you become the rare person who can hold silence. And in that silence, life rushes in not with chaos, but with clarity. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to stop doing, to open the window, and let the fresh air of possibility drift in. That is when the quantum field stops being a concept and starts becoming your lived reality. 6. Energy hygiene and the power of the conscious pause. There's a kind of housekeeping that has nothing to do with dust or clutter, and yet it determines the clarity of your entire life. I call it energy hygiene, the quiet, deliberate practice of tending to the invisible atmosphere you live in every day. You may not see it, but you feel it. It's in the tone of the voices around you, the music that lingers in your ears, the words you allow to enter your mind, and the spaces you spend your time in. All of it either nourishes the frequency you want to keep or slowly drains it. For a long time, I didn't pay attention to this. I thought I could power through anything, that no matter the noise, the tension, or the emotional undercurrent in a room, I could hold my ground. But life has a way of showing you the truth. There were days I couldn't explain why I felt suddenly heavy or unsettled, why my clarity had turned into fog. And when I looked closer, I realized it wasn't random. I had been soaking in the energy of my environment without even noticing, like a shirt left in water, until the color begins to bleed. That's when I began to choose. Really choose the inputs I allowed into my life. The conversations that left me feeling smaller, I stepped back from them. The news that kept my nervous system on high alert, I learned to turn it off when my body told me it had heard enough. The music that stirred something alive in me, I played it more often. I realized that what surrounds you is not neutral. It is constantly shaping the inner frequency you carry. And that frequency is what the quantum field responds to. Energy hygiene is not about living in a bubble. It's about knowing that your attention is your most valuable resource. And you only have so much of it each day. Everything you give it to either feeds the state you want to embody or starves it. If you want to live with a steady, grounded presence, you must tend to that presence the way a gardener tends to a delicate plant, protecting it from weeds, giving it the right light, and removing anything that doesn't help it grow. But there's another part to this practice, one that's even more powerful than curating your environment. It's the conscious pause. We all have patterns that pull us back into old frequencies: the quick defensive reply, the sarcastic remark, the flood of worry when something doesn't go our way. These reactions are often automatic, wired into us from years of repetition. And yet, in the moment, just before we act, there is always a gap, a tiny sliver of space where we can choose differently. Most of us rush past it, but if you can learn to step into that space, even for a breath, you can change the entire trajectory of what comes next. The conscious pause is not about suppressing your feelings. It's about meeting them with awareness before they run away with you. Maybe it's the moment you receive a message that stings, and instead of typing back immediately, you put the phone down and breathe. Maybe it's the moment you feel fear rise in your chest, and instead of feeding it with more anxious thoughts, you place your hand over your heart and remind yourself you are safe right now. This is how you break the chain. This is how you stop the old energy from dictating your next step. When you pause consciously, you are telling your nervous system, we are not in danger. We are choosing the frequency we live from, and the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. You stop being someone who is yanked around by every external push and pull, and you start becoming someone whose signal is steady, someone the quantum field can read clearly. In my own life, I've noticed that the moments I regret the least are the ones where I pause before reacting. They are the moments I gave myself just enough space to remember who I am and what I want to stand for. And often, that one breath, that one heartbeat of stillness, was enough to shift everything, to turn a potential argument into understanding, to transform panic into patience, to keep my energy clean when it was on the verge of being clouded. Energy hygiene and conscious pausing are not one-time actions. They are daily disciplines, woven into the fabric of how you live. You choose the music, the words, the people, the spaces that nourish you. And when the inevitable challenges come, you choose to stop, to feel, and to respond from the place you've worked so carefully to protect. Over time, this becomes your natural state, not because life has stopped testing you, but because you have learned how to meet life without losing yourself in it. Your environment still matters, but now you also carry your own weather inside you. And that is perhaps the highest form of energy hygiene, knowing that no matter where you go, the frequency you keep is the one you've chosen, not the one you've absorbed. And in that choice, in that steady, intentional signal, the quantum field recognizes you. It responds, not to the noise around you, but to the clarity within you. 7. Stop wanting from lack. Live as if it's already yours. There is a subtle but profound difference between wanting something because you believe it belongs in your life and wanting something because you feel the emptiness of not having it. On the surface, they may look the same. Both are a form of desire, but in the language of energy, they couldn't be more different. One grows from fullness, the other from a quiet ache of absence. And the quantum field, like an unflinching mirror, reflects back, not what you say you want, but the state you are holding when you want it. I learned this the hard way. There was a time when I chased goals like someone gasping for air. Every vision I had was tangled with the thought, I don't have this yet, and until I do, something is missing. And so, even as I worked toward my dreams, the undercurrent running through every action was one of lack. It was as if I was announcing to the universe, over and over, I am incomplete, and the universe, always faithful to the signal it receives, simply reflected that back. Opportunities slipped away, winds fell temporary, Even when I reached a milestone, the satisfaction was thin because my inner state hadn't changed. I had treated achievement like a bucket to fill the hole inside me, only to discover the hole was bottomless when fed with lack. It wasn't until I stopped to ask myself, what if I already had what I'm chasing, that something shifted. I began to notice that the people who moved through life with the most ease weren't necessarily the ones with the most resources or the least challenges. They were the ones who carried themselves as if they already belonged in the life they envisioned. They didn't strain to prove it. They embodied it. Living as if it's already yours doesn't mean pretending or lying to yourself. It means choosing to feel now the emotional state you imagine you'll have one day. If you believe you'll be peaceful when you have more security, then cultivate peace in this moment, before the circumstances change. If you think you'll feel confident when you reach a certain goal, stand and walk today as if that version of you is already here. This is not just a mindset trick, it is energetic alignment. When you inhabit the feeling of already having, you stop broadcasting the frequency of I lack and start radiating the frequency of I am. And in the quantum field, I am is a creative command. It draws to you the people, opportunities, and events that match the state you are embodying. The challenge is that our culture is deeply addicted to the narrative of not enough. We are taught to measure life by what is missing, to see every gap as a flaw to be fixed. But when you constantly live in that measurement, you unknowingly chain yourself to a future that looks exactly like your present because your energy hasn't changed. You may be working harder, chasing more, but you are still planting seeds of scarcity. To break this pattern, you must begin to nurture the experience of fullness, even in the absence of the thing you desire. It might start small. Maybe you imagine the gratitude you would feel if your dream had already unfolded, and you let yourself really feel it not for a second, but for minutes at a time. Maybe you notice how your body relaxes when you believe, even briefly, that everything you need is already here. These moments matter. They are like tuning forks, setting your frequency to match the reality you are calling in. When you live this way, something beautiful happens. You stop waiting for permission to feel whole. You stop bargaining with life, saying, when I get this, then I'll be happy. Instead, your happiness becomes unconditional. And from that place, desire is no longer a cry from emptiness. It becomes a quiet expansion from abundance. I remember a conversation with a friend who had been searching for love for years. She told me, the day I stopped trying to get love and started living as if I was already loved, everything changed. She began treating herself the way she hoped a partner would. She filled her days with warmth, beauty, and connection. And within months, she met someone who mirrored that back to her, not because she chased it, but because she became it. That's the truth of it. The quantum field does not respond to your words, your vision boards, or even your effort. If they are soaked in the energy of lack, it responds to the state you are living in now. And when that state is one of fullness, of already having, life reorganizes to reflect it. Living as if it's already yours isn't about ignoring your reality. It's about refusing to let your current circumstances dictate your state of being. It's about remembering that the feeling you're waiting for in the future is available to you right now. And the moment you claim it not as a hope, but as a home, you stop chasing and start attracting the fishes, because in the end, the most magnetic thing you can be is whole. And when you are whole, the life you've been reaching for will have no choice but to reach back. 8. Rehearsing the right vibration. There's a common misunderstanding about acting as if. Many people hear it and think it means forcing a smile, repeating affirmations you don't believe, or pretending your life is perfect when it's not. But that's not the heart of it. True vibrational rehearsal is not about faking belief. It's about teaching your body to recognize and accept a new emotional state as home. It's not play acting. It's physiological, cellular, real. You see, Your body remembers. It remembers every season. You've lived through times of fear, times of scarcity, times of grief. These states become familiar. Even if they're uncomfortable, they become your baseline because you've practiced them, consciously or not, day after day. And because the body craves familiarity, it will try to return to that baseline, even when you're longing for something better. That's why change can feel so hard. It's not just about changing your mind. It's about changing what your body recognizes as normal. Rehearsing the right vibration means deliberately introducing your body to the feelings you want to make your new baseline relief. Safety, joy, ease. It means creating moments where your breath slows, your muscles release, and your mind rests not once in a while, but consistently, until your nervous system stops treating these states as special events and starts treating them as the default setting. When I first tried this, it felt awkward. My mind would whisper, "This isn't real. You're just imagining." But I realized that my body didn't care whether it came from a real event or from conscious creation. It simply responded to the signals I gave it. When I closed my eyes and pictured a safe, beautiful place, my breath deepened. When I thought about a time I felt genuinely appreciated, my shoulders loosened. The key wasn't to convince my mind, it was to let my body have the experience again and again, until it no longer needed a reason to feel that way. Think of it like training a muscle. You don't go to the gym once and expect your body to change permanently. You repeat the movements. You strengthen the pathways. And over time, those movements become second nature. Vibrational rehearsal works the same way. You are building emotional muscle memory. Here's where most people stumble. They try to jump from fear straight into bliss, from anxiety straight into euphoria. But the nervous system resists big leaps. If you've been living in tension for years, asking your body to suddenly feel overjoyed might feel unsafe, even threatening. So instead, you start small. Maybe your first step is simply a feeling of relief, like the exhale after setting down a heavy bag. You hold that. You breathe into it. You let your body learn that relief is allowed. From there, you move into safety, into ease, and only then into joy. And it's not just about sitting quietly with your eyes closed, though that can be powerful. You can rehearse vibration while walking, cooking, or lying in bed at night. You can pair it with music that naturally shifts your state, with scents that relax you, or with the sunlight on your face. The more senses you involve, the more deeply your body will anchor the new state. There's a moment, after enough rehearsal, when something clicks. You notice that you're no longer trying to feel calm, you simply are. You're no longer forcing gratitude. It rises naturally. That's the point when your new vibration has become embodied. When the emotional state you once had to create consciously has taken root as your natural way of being. And here's the beauty of it: when your body accepts a new emotional baseline, your outer reality shifts to match. The quantum field doesn't have to be convinced anymore. It simply reflects back the state you're already living. People will respond differently to you without knowing why. Opportunities will seem to flow toward you without strain. It's not magic, it's resonance. I remember meeting someone who carried this effortlessly. She didn't rush, didn't prove, didn't grasp. Her presence felt like a warm fire on a cold day, steady, inviting, unshakable. When I asked her about it, she smiled and said, "I practiced feeling safe until I forgot what it was like not to." That's the quiet power of vibrational rehearsal. It doesn't just change how you feel, it changes who you are in the eyes of the world. So no, this isn't about pretending you're rich, or loved, or successful. It's about letting your body experience the same sense of freedom, belonging, and joy that you imagine those things will bring now. Before they arrive, it's about bridging the gap between the life you hope for and the life you live, by closing it inside you first. And when you do that long enough, You won't just be acting as if, you'll be living as is. 9. No longer available for the old frequency. There comes a quiet but decisive moment in any true transformation where you realize it's not just about choosing the new. It's also about refusing the old. It's about no longer being available for the habits, the conversations, the environments, and even the inner narratives that once kept you tied to a smaller version of yourself. Most of us try to step into a higher frequency while still keeping one foot in the old one. We tell ourselves it's harmless to keep entertaining certain thoughts or to spend time in spaces that drain us, as long as we balance it with positivity later. But the truth is, the old frequency is persistent. It doesn't need much to pull you back, just a familiar trigger, a careless routine, or a single moment of unconscious agreement. When you decide you are no longer available for the old frequency, it isn't an act of aggression, it's an act of devotion. Devotion to the life you are building. Devotion to the peace you are cultivating. Devotion to the self you are becoming. You begin to notice, with increasing clarity, the small ways the old state tries to call you home. It might be an old friend's constant complaints. It might be a mental loop you replay when you're tired. It might be the way you check your phone first thing in the morning and immediately let the outside world dictate your state. And when you see it, you choose differently. Not once, not twice, but every time. This is the consistency that speaks louder than any vision board, louder than any affirmation. The quantum field is always listening, always responding to the vibration you sustain. Each time you turn away from what no longer serves, you're sending a clear signal. I am no longer that person. I am no longer that frequency. I have moved. This isn't about building walls around yourself or rejecting every challenge. It's about discernment. If an environment consistently pulls you into agitation, you limit your exposure. If a thought pattern always leaves you feeling small, you interrupt it mid-sentence. If a habit leads you down the same old road, you reroute before the first step. When I began this in my own life, I underestimated how much of the old me was embedded in the smallest details. The music I listened to, the tone of my self-talk, the way I tolerated certain conversations because I didn't want to seem rude. Letting go of those patterns didn't always feel dramatic. Sometimes it was as simple as pausing before saying yes. Sometimes it was walking away from a topic or turning off the news when I felt my body contract. These small refusals became the scaffolding for my new state. You might notice, at first, a kind of emptiness where the old patterns used to live. That's natural. The nervous system craves the familiar, even when it's not good for you. But if you can sit in that space without rushing to fill it, you'll find it begins to attract new, life-giving patterns. Relationships shift. Your inner dialogue softens. Even the air around you feels different. This consistency is what creates a turning point, because the field responds not to what you wish for in passing, but to what you embody, without apology. Every no you speak to the old is a yes to the new timeline you're stepping into. It's like moving house until you pack up and stop sleeping in the old place. You haven't truly relocated. There will be moments when the old frequency tries to tempt you back, not because you're weak, but because you've spent years there. It knows your name. It knows your soft spots. But with practice, your loyalty shifts. You start to recognize the pull for what it is, an echo, not a truth. And an echo only has power if you stop to listen. One day, you'll realize you haven't felt the urge to return in weeks, maybe months. You won't have to remind yourself to protect your energy. It will happen naturally. Like closing a door when the wind blows cold. That's when you know you've crossed the threshold. You are no longer negotiating with your old life. You're living in the new one, and you've become unavailable for anything less. And in that unwavering state, the quantum field doesn't just take notice. It aligns, rearranges, and delivers because you are no longer broadcasting mixed signals. You are, in every choice and every breath, speaking the language of the life you've chosen, and the life you've chosen will have no choice but to meet you there. 10. The resting signal is what the universe responds to. There is a quiet truth that took me years to understand. The universe isn't only responding to what you do when you are on. It's not just the meditation sessions, the vision boards, the affirmations, or the conscious alignment practices. Those matter, yes, but they are not the full picture. What the universe truly listens for is the signal you emit when you're not trying. The frequency you fall into naturally when the performance ends, when the mind stops scripting, when the effort dissolves into being. We often underestimate this resting signal because it feels passive, even insignificant. Yet it is the most honest broadcast of your state. You can choose loving thoughts for 20 minutes in the morning, but if you spend the rest of the day in subtle tension, anxiety, or lack, the signal the universe receives is not your morning ritual. It's the hum beneath it all. The resting signal is like the default setting on your inner radio, the one that plays without you having to tune it. This is why trying to manifest can sometimes backfire. When you are forcing, controlling, or endlessly adjusting your state, you are implying to yourself and to the field that what you desire is still far away, still not here. That undercurrent of striving leaks into your resting signal, and the universe mirrors it back, not as punishment, but as a precise reflection. The quantum field cannot be fooled by words or images alone. It responds to the vibration you hold without effort. I learned this the hard way. There was a season in my life when I was doing all the right things, journaling my gratitude, visualizing my future, speaking affirmations with conviction. But if you caught me in an unguarded moment, between tasks or alone in the kitchen, my body told a different story. Shoulders tense, breath shallow, a quiet sense of urgency in my chest. That was my true signal. And life responded in kind, delivering experiences that kept me waiting, rushing, and never quite arriving. The shift began when I stopped asking, how can I make the universe give me what I want? And started asking, what is the signal I am resting in when I'm not paying attention? That question changed everything. I began to notice my default state, like I would notice the background hum of a refrigerator, subtle, constant, shaping the entire environment. This is where the art of letting go becomes more than a cliché. It's not about abandoning your desires. It's about softening your grip on them. Imagine planting a seed in the soil. You don't dig it up every hour to check its progress. You water it. You give it sunlight. And then you let the earth do what it knows how to do. Your resting signal works the same way. It's the fertile ground in which your intentions grow. If that ground is soaked in trust, in the quiet knowing of it's already mine, life will meet you there without struggle. When you truly rest in fullness, you're not pretending. You're not layering forced positivity over doubt. You're inhabiting a state where you feel complete now, where you no longer watch the clock or the calendar for evidence. And here's the paradox: when you stop needing it to come, it often arrives faster, not because you've tricked the system, but because you've stopped resisting it with the frequency of lack. Resting in fullness is not the same as complacency. It's not abandoning action. It's simply allowing your actions to flow from stability rather than from desperation. In this way, even when you are in motion, your signal remains calm, steady, unshaken. The universe reads that as a green light. In my own practice, I began to weave micro moments of check-in throughout the day, not to correct myself, but to simply notice, what's the signal now? Sometimes I would catch myself in a subtle contraction and choose to exhale, unclench, let the shoulders drop. Other times, I would find myself already at ease and smile at the fact that this ease was becoming my new normal. Over weeks and months, that new normal became the default. My resting signal shifted from quiet scarcity to quiet abundance. And the reflection came opportunities that didn't require chasing, relationships that felt effortless, solutions that arrived without wrestling them into place. I began to see that I wasn't making things happen. I was simply aligning my baseline to a reality where they already existed, and life did the rest. So if you remember nothing else from this, remember this: what you do matters, but who you are when you stop doing matters more. Because the resting signal is your truest prayer, your most unfiltered declaration, the real conversation between you and the field. And if that signal says, "I am whole, I am safe, I am already living in the reality I choose," then the universe, without hesitation, will nod and say, "Yes, you are." 11. Misalignment from the social mask. There is a quiet exhaustion that comes from wearing a face the world expects, while living with a different reality inside. Many of us have perfected the mask: a polished smile, a voice that sounds certain, a presence that appears unshakable. On the surface, we seem confident, capable, maybe even thriving. But if you were to step inside for a moment into the private corridors of the mind, you might find unease, doubt, or a low hum of fear running in the background. This gap between the outer performance and the inner truth is what I call a misalignment of the self. It is not about being dishonest or hypocritical. It's often born from survival. We learn early that some parts of us are rewarded, and others are met with silence or rejection. So we become skilled at curating ourselves, presenting the version that wins approval, keeps peace, or earns respect. The problem is, the universe doesn't respond to the curated image. It responds to the frequency beneath it. And when those two are out of sync, the signal gets distorted. You might have felt this before. You work hard to embody confidence, to show up as the person who has it together, and yet your reality delivers situations that feel almost right, but not quite opportunities that get close. Relationships that nearly fit, dreams that almost land. It's as if life is mirroring back that nearly energy, that close but not complete vibration. And that's exactly what's happening. The quantum field responds to the composite of your thoughts, emotions, and body state, not just the surface you show to others. I lived like this for years without realizing it. I thought my fake it till you make it approach was working. I wore the right clothes, spoke with assurance, and pretended I wasn't anxious. People believed me, but my body knew. The shallow breaths, the tight jaw, the restless mind. These were all whispers of my real state. And the field knew, too. It brought me experiences that matched that internal instability. No matter how convincing my outer act was, true alignment isn't about giving up the mask overnight. It's about slowly reducing the distance between the outer self and the inner self until they feel like the same person. That means letting your thoughts, your emotions, and your body agree on the same truth. If you want to live in ease, your thoughts can't keep looping on worst-case scenarios. If you want to project confidence, your body can't stay locked in the posture of defense. And if you want abundance, your emotions can't stay anchored in scarcity. One of the most powerful shifts I experienced came from allowing my body to lead the alignment. Instead of trying to convince myself I was calm, I practiced breathing in a way that was calm. Instead of telling myself I was safe, I moved more slowly, spoke more softly, and let my shoulders drop. It's remarkable how the body can teach the mind and emotions what safe feels like, when words alone cannot. This is not about rejecting ambition or enthusiasm. It's about removing the static from your signal. Imagine trying to tune into a clear radio station, but the transmitter is sending two different signals at once. The result is noise, no matter how strong one of those signals is. In the same way, when your social mask says, "I'm ready for love," but your inner state still fears intimacy, the field receives both messages, and because it's precise, It mirrors back the mixture, often in the form of relationships that hover between connection and distance, never fully landing. The invitation here is to start noticing where you are acting and where you are being. Acting isn't always bad, it's often a bridge to becoming, but when the act becomes a shield, it can trap you in a cycle where the life you desire can't quite find you. Begin small. In moments when you feel the urge to overstate your confidence, pause and see if you can speak from where you truly are. In situations where you want to smile but your chest feels tight, let your body breathe before your mouth moves. And when you notice that your mind is rehearsing a version of you for others to approve, gently return to the version of you that needs no performance. Over time, this practice shifts the resting signal, the one we spoke of before, into coherence. Thoughts, emotions, and body begin to hum at the same frequency. And when they do, the field no longer has to guess which version of you to respond to. It knows. It feels the wholeness, the lack of contradiction, the simple clarity of "this is who I am." And that is when life stops sending you the almost and starts delivering the exactly, because you are no longer broadcasting two channels. You are one signal, steady and undiluted. And here's the gentle truth: you deserve to live without that split. You deserve to feel as good inside as you look on the outside. Not because it's a performance worth perfecting, but because it's a life worth inhabiting fully, honestly, and without the quiet ache of pretending. 12. The formula of consistency. There's a quiet turning point on the journey of creation, a moment when you realize that it's not about chasing what you want, but becoming it. Until that moment, it's easy to believe the process is mostly about thinking the right thoughts, visualizing the right scenes, or feeling a certain way for a few minutes each day. Those practices have value. They are the warm-up, the stretching before the long walk. But they are not the walk itself. The walk begins when the intention stops being an occasional focus and starts being the state you live in. It's when the desire no longer feels like something out there you're trying to pull closer, but like a natural extension of who you already are. This is what I mean by becoming the signal. It's not a metaphor, it's the actual physics of resonance. The field responds most strongly to consistent vibration. A tuning fork hums not because you hit it once, but because it's designed to hold its note. The same is true for you. A brief spark of clarity or joy can light up the moment, but unless it's sustained, the echo fades, and reality falls back into its old rhythm. Think about how the seasons change. Spring doesn't arrive because one day feels warm. It arrives because the warmth stays. Day after day, the temperature holds, the soil softens, and the trees trust it enough to bloom. Your life works the same way. A single meditation, a flash of hope, or a burst of gratitude may start the shift. But the real transformation happens when you hold that state steadily enough for reality to recognize it as your new climate. When I first understood this, it wasn't comforting, it was confronting. I had to admit that my results matched my true resting state, not my highest moments. I could speak affirmations, visualize abondance, and even feel it for a while. But my baseline was still survival, still not enough. And that baseline was what the field mirrored back. So the question became, how do you change the baseline? The answer was gentler than I expected. It wasn't about constant effort or intense discipline, it was about weaving the new state into the ordinary. Instead of reserving my elevated emotions for morning rituals, I started folding them into the smallest acts: making tea, walking to the mailbox, folding clothes. I treated each as a chance to be the person who already had what I desired. Over time, something remarkable happened. It stopped feeling like an act. The state I used to practice became my default. And with that shift, the reality didn't need to be convinced. It simply conformed. Opportunities, people, and moments that matched my new frequency arrived without the strain of pursuit. You've probably experienced the opposite without realizing it. When you're in a low state for a while, tired, pessimistic, heavy, you don't have to go out looking for problems. They find you. The wrong email shows up. The car makes a strange sound. Someone's mood spills into your day. It's not a punishment. It's just the mirror. Your frequency sends the invitation, and reality accepts. The beauty of the formula is that it works the same way for what you do want. When you are the signal clear, steady, and aligned, the new timeline has no reason to hesitate. It's drawn to you as naturally as a seed leans toward sunlight. But here's the part that many people miss. Consistency isn't built in grand gestures. It's built in the quiet, repeated choice to return to your state, even when nothing seems to be happening. It's trusting that the signal is being received, even in silence. It's letting go of the temptation to check if it's working, because that checking often slips you back into the frequency of not having. There's a difference between holding a frequency and holding your breath. One feels tense. The other feels like home. You'll know you've crossed the line when the state no longer feels like something you're doing. It just feels like who you are. And in that moment, pursuit becomes irrelevant. The thing you wanted is no longer ahead of you. It's around you, within you. And soon, it's reflected back to you in undeniable form. The formula, if it can be called that, is simple enough to fit in a single breath, clear intention, elevated emotion, embodied consistently. But living it is an art. It's learning to let your inner climate settle so deeply into the new temperature that the whole ecosystem of your life begins to change. And once it does, you won't look back at the old timeline with longing or regret. You'll simply see it as a place you no longer live. Not because you ran from it, but because you outgrew it. You'll walk into your days with the quiet knowing that you are no longer chasing the life you want, you're broadcasting it, living it, breathing it. And life, with its unfailing precision, will always respond to that. When you become the frequency, the waiting ends. In the realm of energy and frequency, the rules are far simpler and far more demanding than the mind likes to believe. Effort, in the way we often define it, is not the deciding factor. It is not the number of hours you work, the complexity of your rituals, or the force with which you try to make something happen. The key is harmony and inner alignment, so complete that there is no longer a gap between what you say you want and what you quietly expect. I learned this the long way. For years, I treated my dreams like destinations on a map. I would stand here. They would be there. And my job was to close the distance, but the more I measured the gap, the more it seemed to hold. Every step forward seemed to confirm I was still on the way, never quite there. It took me a long time to understand that as long as I kept seeing my desire as something separate, I was holding it apart from me. I was rehearsing the state of wanting, not the state of being. And the universe, ever faithful in its reflection, gave me more moments of wanting. Then something shifted. I stopped asking, when will it happen? I began to ask, how would I live if it were already here? That question changed everything. It wasn't a trick. It wasn't pretending. And it wasn't about denying my current circumstances. It was about embodying the feeling that my life was already flavored with what I had been chasing. I noticed that when I walked into a room with that quiet certainty, people responded differently. Opportunities that once felt distant began appearing in casual conversations. Even my body felt different, less tense, less restless, because it wasn't living in a state of waiting anymore. This is what I mean when I say that you collapse the entire waiting time into a single moment, the present. The dream stops being a far-off shore you swim toward and becomes the water you're already standing in. From that place, there's nothing left to chase. There's only the living, the breathing, the natural unfolding of what was already resonating with you. Some people call it magic. I don't, because magic suggests a break in the natural order. And this isn't that. This is nature itself. The law of resonance, the way sound finds sound, the way light bends toward light. You're not bending the rules, you're finally following them. It's a subtle shift, but it changes everything from I want to, I am. From someday to now, from looking out to looking in, and realizing the signal you've been sending is the same one you've been receiving all along. When you understand this, impatience dissolve. You stop checking the clock, because the idea of waiting no longer makes sense. You stop measuring the distance, because there's no distance to measure. And without that tension, without that constant silent announcement that you are still lacking, the universe finally has the space to deliver, because you have stopped pushing it away. It's worth saying that this isn't a one-time adjustment. The world will tempt you back into measuring, comparing, doubting. But each time you notice and return to that inner alignment, you strengthen it. Each time you choose to be the state instead of chase it, the signal grows clearer, steadier, harder to shake. And when it's steady, truly steady, there's no delay. Life meets you in the exact note you're holding, not because you've earned it through force, but because you've matched it through being. From that moment forward, creation stops feeling like a battle. It becomes a dance, a gentle exchange between your inner world and the greater field. Each moving in time with the other, you give the signal, it responds. You open, it arrives. No pushing, no pleading, just resonance. And maybe that's the deepest truth I can leave you with. The universe is not holding your dream hostage. It's simply waiting for you to speak its language, not in words, but in the quiet, consistent frequency of who you've chosen to become. When you reach that point, you won't just have what you wanted. You'll understand, in a way that no book or teacher could ever fully explain, that you and your desire were never separate to begin with. That is the moment life stops delaying. That is the moment it says, "Welcome home."